And yeah, so yeah, actually I won't be using these slides. This is more of an overview of what I'll be doing. And the first thing is, what is Kotlin? So yeah, if you've never actually heard of a language called Kotlin, or you're not aware of something called Kotlin, if you just heard Kotlin, or Kotlin is just a buzzword for you, Kotlin is actually from the Wikipedia's definition, cross-platform, statically typed, general-purpose programming language. So Kotlin is not only used for Android; it's also used on web platforms, on other native platforms, on the JVM. And yeah, so like Kotlin is a very multi-purpose programming language, and it's not only scoped to Android. There's a lot of things which you can actually achieve using the Kotlin programming language. And it has a functional programming style paradigm to it, and you could also still do object-oriented programming with Kotlin. So it's a matter of your coding style and how you use Kotlin. So yeah, Kotlin is actually not a new language. It's something that's been there for almost, I think, 10 years now. Yeah, but it actually became more of an official language in Android at around 2017, I think, or 2018. There was an I/O which Google announced as Kotlin as one of the official supported languages that you can write your Android apps in. And so we're going to look at like the basics of like the syntax, which you're going to see on a daily as you work with Kotlin. Just the basics, not something heavily technical. And to actually test out all this basic stuff, we're going to be using something called the Kotlin Playground. So if you just go to Google, search for Kotlin Playground, the first link that you'll see, that is actually what we'll be using. It's an online sandbox to explore the Kotlin programming language. So yeah, this is before we actually do the IDE setups and everything on our machines. This is more just to get a feel of how Kotlin looks like and how it feels to write Kotlin. So this is where I'll be writing most of the code. And yeah, so it's just like an IDE sort of. Okay, it doesn't have all the functionality you'd get when you're using an IDE or your normal tool, but it kind of just covers the base. Yeah, it's going to be useful in learning. It's like you want to like prototype or learn something new about Kotlin real fast, and you don't want to go through all the process of opening an IDE, or probably you're on your phone or something. You can just like create your code here and hit the run button on the right. Yeah, so let's start with the basics. And so a couple of resources of where to actually learn about Kotlin. So the first one I'd recommend is, let's search for Udacity, Kotlin. And there's this Udacity Kotlin Bootcamp for programmers.
Hey, David, we can use a little of Zoom.
Okay. I think that's better.
Much better.
Cool. Yeah, so this is one course you can actually look at, Kotlin Bootcamp for programmers. Like after this, I think I will not cover everything because Kotlin has a lot of features which can't be covered in 1 hour. I'll be more of touching on the core or very basic or fundamental things just to get you started and feel comfortable diving into Kotlin. But I'd recommend actually boosting your Kotlin knowledge with this free bootcamp course. So they just go and they start Kotlin from scratch all the way to some kind of good level. Other than this, I think there's also the Kotlin documentation. So you actually just search for Kotlin. There's this Kotlin programming language, open that. then you're going to see this really fancy, nice looking dashboard. And yeah, just go to get started. And yeah, learn Kotlin fundamentals. They have the Kotlin documentation is very well structured and thought out. So it will be that challenging to set up or get started with learning a couple of things to do with Kotlin. But if you actually encounter any issues, feel free to raise it in the group. Yeah, we'll help you with anything that's Kotlin related or Android related. Yeah, so if you're actually familiar with Java, probably switching to Kotlin might be faster for you. If you've never done programming at all, yeah, I think it will, looking at the bootcamp probably, and probably the basics I might cover, and also reinforcing it with this documentation is what I heavily recommend. Like you'll have to put in some time and practice at least, I don't know, 20, 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day. Yeah, and the first thing I'm going to talk about is more of the complete basics, like the syntax, just to get you familiar with the syntax. And if you actually go to the playground, we have this main function. So if you're coming from Java, probably you're used to the public static void, I think main and all that stuff. So in Kotlin, to actually, this main function is actually where everything is executed. And yeah, all you have to do is write fun and main, and yeah, that's like your main function. This is how we write functions in Kotlin. You just put a fun and write the function name and the curly braces. No, not the curly braces, the brackets. Put in your curly braces and voila, you have your function. Yeah, so here you can now start writing your code, and the first thing is usually the holy grail or whatever of starting a new programming language is writing hello world. And yes, as you can see, like it's kind of, you're already like familiar probably with a bit of Java. You can see like there's some similarities. I think probably if you're familiar with Java, you'll have done like a system.out.print and do all this stuff. But yeah, you just have to write like a println. I think this is kind of built into the Kotlin standard. There's something called the Kotlin standard library, which provides you all these common functions.
Hey David, just sorry to cut you short. A little Zoom will do for the people joining via phone. Just
Okay.
that's much better. Thank you.
Cool. And yeah, we can just run this and hello world. So this is like the most basic Kotlin kind of app, console app that you can build. Yeah, so print is just used to display a couple of things on the screen. Yeah, there's println and there's print, and println kind of prints things in a new line, because if I actually was to do things like print hello and world, you can see like this. But if I actually add an ln here, len is more of like adding a new line. So all these functions are part of something called the Kotlin standard library. Okay, I think this applies then to the next one that I'll print. As you can see, like the next line will be on a new, the next thing after it will be on a new line. So yeah. And that's our hello world with Kotlin. Now to other cool stuff, whatever the things you'll do with Kotlin on a daily basis, things like variables, functions, classes. So to kick it off, I'd probably start with, okay, we've already like seen a function, which is the main function here. The one which actually is like the entry point of the app, or the console app in this case. You might have noticed maybe on Android you have like this main activity, and that's like the entry point of the whole Android app. So yeah, main is usually most of the times associated with the entry point of like a console app, Android app, a UI kind of thing. And yeah, this is how we rate functions. Yeah, so you can have, you actually need to have a function, or if you want to create your own custom function, you can just come here and say fun print my name. That's how you create a function in Kotlin. A function just holds some piece of logic or some a block of functionality which kind of are trying to achieve something. So that's basically what a function is. So you can just come here, print ln, then I can probably write my name here and say David. So how do we call another function? So this is another function. I want to print my name whenever the project is initialized. After hello world, I want to see my name. So how will I run this here? And to actually call another function in Kotlin, just similar to how you will do it on any other programming language, just call print my name. So the good thing also with these tools, even the Kotlin Playground or whatever ID you're using, you'll always have this kind of autocomplete. So yeah, and this is how we call another function with another function, some basic stuff. I run this, I see my name, cool, it works. Now the problem now here is we now have, okay, we have a function, cool, that prints some name. Now we want to start passing in, I don't know, probably custom names like, I don't know, Paul or Mary or someone else's. We want to print someone else's name. And this function needs to take in like arguments or parameters or external sources of data that we can like pass in. And how do we do that? We come here and we need to know what type we are passing in here. So that now brings me to the next thing, which is types that are in Kotlin. And it depends. Now, for example, if the type of data you need, in Kotlin you have very many, okay, not really. I'm going to talk about the very basic types, which are things to do with numbers and strings. So for numbers, for example, 1 is an integer. So let me see. I think I probably have to backtrack and start with how we declare variables first. So a variable is kind of a store. Oops, I think I opened the wrong tab. Yeah. So a variable is kind of a store for your data type. And in Kotlin, we have two ways to declare this sort of variables. And the first one is val. And your variable might have a name. Let's call this one my name. And it might have a type, let's say string. And my name is David. So another way you can declare variables in Kotlin is var my second name, or my what about my name can be modified? My username, right? Probably my username is something I can change. So there's var and there's There's val and there's var. So val is more of this values are usually assigned. This is a value that you can't change once it's assigned. And the moment you actually say it's val and you do not assign it, you're going to see like some error. So you need to actually, the moment you actually say it's val, you have to assign a value to it. You can't change this value at any point in time. Yeah, once you assign it, that's it. It's like a face mask. Like once you use it, that's it. You've used it. You have to like dispose it. Like you can't. If you actually want to modify it, you're going to have to like create a whole new variable. So it's like a one use kind of variable. For var, you can always modify it whenever you want. Like I can come here and do my username and set it to, I don't know, meow or something, or come here again and set it to something else. But I can't come and do this. I can't come and do this for a variable that has the val keyword on it. And yeah, these are the two ways in which we declare variables, val and var. So with that said, you can see like I also put in a type. We also have like very other types in Kotlin. We have things like val my age, and age is more of an int. So this is how we declare types in Kotlin. We just put like a colon and then write the type. So usually it's in Kotlin, usually write the variable name, then put a colon, then say the type of your variable name, and then like put in some age. Then you come here, say what other type do we have? Weight maybe. Then I will put in a double. So yeah, doubles and float. There's a type called double, there's a type called float. These are more things which have decimal points. Then what other type of data do we have? The other data types like long. This is for really huge numbers. Probably like what? I can't have like the earth weight and like a long and have a really. There's a limit to how many value a long can store. I'm not quite sure. So yeah, we have like a couple of different data types for numbers depending on what your number will look like. So I think that's the kind of the most common data types that you might use when working with Kotlin. Strings, ints, doubles, longs. I think you can refer back here and see if there's any kind of thing I've missed. Let me see. I think ints, strings, longs, kind of like the common data types that you're going to run across. And where is the playground? Okay, cool. Yeah, so now I want to print all this data that I've actually created, this name, this username, age, weight. Okay, I don't actually need to print this, but so I actually need to print all this, and I want to pass all this to my function here. So I think I'm going to change this function to print my data, since we'll be printing more than the name. And how we pass all this to our function. So to actually pass all this to our function, we're going to have to modify this function and have it take in different types of data. So the first thing you want to print is the name. So we're going to take in name. So we said like you put the variable name and the type is going to be string. So we're going to actually take in a name, which is of type string, and we're going to print it here. So we're going to change this, write name. So when I come here, I can just pass in my this, and we print it. Yeah, and it works. Next, we want to find out how we will print all these other types of data. So all you have to do is just like add a comma, print, add in another type that you want to print out here, probably int. I can come in and print and say age. And I come back to my function, add a comma, and add the new one I added is my age. Print it. Yeah, you can see it's just printing everything. So it's just the same thing you want to add something else. Wait. Add in my weight. I think it was a double. Yeah, println weight. Back to my function and add the weight variable we created earlier. And that's it. And yeah, so you can have as many parameters on your function. So yeah, this function can be like reused. Someone can pass in whatever name, age, weight they want. So yeah, it's not just my name. I can change it to, I don't know, I can change the name here. Change to Peter, and change the age to like 4. And it just keeps on. Yeah, so like you see, like we are not actually changing anything in this function. A function is just like a piece of logic that is very easily reusable with different types of data. And yeah, that's kind of covers how we create variables, how we create functions, how we add parameters to functions, and some of the most common types used when working with this kind of data. Yeah, different types for different types of data. And yeah, so I think with that, we might just move on to something else. So let me just delete this. And yeah, we are past the hello world. Now a bit into a time to get our hands a bit dirty with, let's see, we know functions, we know variables, classes, and yeah, so probably I won't do that now. So comments, yeah, I also won't do that just yet. I'm going to hold on a bit. So I'm going to do a bit of conditional expressions and things like for loops and all this stuff, and how we actually do it on Kotlin. So let's say we have a variable called is old. It is old. I think or is old. Okay, actually no. Or yeah, let's just call it is old. And we can say this is the type is Boolean. So a Boolean is something that can be true or false, basically. And we want to see if someone's age is if their age is greater than probably 60, then we'll say they're old. So we do not have an age. We're going to create a new variable called age and call it age is an int, and let's say they are 20. So since we actually want to be checking different types of ages, I think this will be best done in a function. So we can actually extract this logic to a function and say is old, and then have it take the variable of age. Age is an integer, and now we're going to learn something new about functions. So this function needs to return a boolean. So how do we make it do that? So initially we just looked at how to create a function. This is how we name a function. This is how we add like parameters to a function. But how do we make it return something? We just come here to the end, add the usual colon, and say it returns a boolean. And that's it. So, and how do we return from functions? Say return. Return basically says that this function is returning this type of data. And I'm just going to copy paste this. And so I'm going to remove all this code and say is old in the age. And then so now we actually get some data from passing this age. So we pass in our age here, which we created in a variable, to this function. It checks if our age is greater than 60. So since the person is 20, so this is going to return false. And so this will return false, but we need to store this false in a variable. And how do we do that? We just looked at it, and we just create another variable and say is this user old. So we have now stored that false in this variable. So yeah, so what we've actually looked at that's new here is how a function returns data. So you just add this colon, add the type, return, do some logic, and you can return that logic and store that logic in a variable like this. So most times I'll use val. Usually we rarely use var because there's a concept called mutability and immutability. So if your variable cannot be modified at any point in the system, the better. That kind of makes the system more reliable in terms of the data you're receiving, because a var can be changed at any point and you won't actually know when or if it's actually been changed. Yeah, so now that we actually have stored that false value here, now what do we do with this? Is this user old? So it's false. Probably we want to, I don't know, display some text based on if the user is old or if they're young, or if yeah, let's assume this is like a shopping store, and we are now going to look at conditions. So if is this user old, yeah, if this user is old, and probably print we have like a 10% discount for you, and they're not old. So we have this if else. I think if else, if you've ever done any other programming language, this might be not anything. This is not new, but Yeah, if you're actually new to programming, we have these things called conditional statements. So what they do is they kind of change how the code is executed. So normally, like as we did it before, we just had, like, for example, the prints statements, which just followed each other. Like it printed the first line, went to the second, the third, the fourth line. So this kind of changes how the code will be executed. So it's going to skip this code if the user is not old and execute the code that's here. Hence the if this, do this. If it's not this, then do this other else thing. And yeah, so you can come here and do, we have and discount for you. And yeah, so if you actually run this, what you actually expect, the user is 20, so the user is not old, so you expect it to go to the else. So if we run this, we see we have a 5% discount for you. And if we change this to like 75, we have like 10% discount for you. So you can imagine, like, if this was like an actual real code, probably this age will be coming, I don't know, from some other external source, and you just, yeah, they can just like pass it in and show different types of text for it. And yeah, we actually, other than the if, we have yeah, we have a couple of other conditional statements which you can kind of look at. We have something called a when. And a when kind of looks like, let me see, this. Okay, let me actually do a simple implementation of the when. And I will probably have to delete this again. Yeah, probably will get easier when I don't have to delete all this when I actually use IDEs for the next. Yeah, so a when is more of, so yeah, sometimes people use ifs, people use when, sometimes it's a matter of preference. An example could be, probably we have a day of the week. Let's call it Tuesday. Or no, actually, day of the week is more. Let me go with time of day. Call it and we want to do different things depending on the time of day. So when the time of day is morning, I want to say morning. I want to print good morning. And the time of day is noon. Print afternoon. The time of day is afternoon. Print good afternoon. And when the time of day is evening, I want to print good evening. So this is kind of what, and yeah, it also has like an else. This is, else is called when actually the time of day doesn't meet this criteria. If it's not morning, noon, afternoon, evening, then print yeah, let's print no time of day in something. So yeah, this is kind of how a when looks like. You just pass in some data and then it checks if it actually meets something which kind of fits what it is looking for. It executes that code. If it goes through all this and it doesn't see anything that it knows, it does the else. So here we have morning, so we expect it to print good morning. So let's see. Yeah, good morning. And if we change it to something like evening, and if we change it to something like yeah, so it kind of covers all the cases. So there's like ifs and when for kind of playing with different conditions. Another thing about all this is, let's see. Yeah, we just have ifs and whens for, if you're actually coming from Java, you can think of the when as a switch statement. Yeah. And that's it for the ifs and the whens and the conditional things. Actually, no, there's actually one more important conditional statement that I have to mention. We have for loops. So what a for loop is it so yeah, like the conditional statements, as I mentioned before, they kind of alter how the code will be executed. It could be they skip some code portion and execute another different kind of the else, like we saw, or a different code block. Or for things like for loops, we have for loops, while loops, and all the repeat stuff. They kind of execute the code over and over and over again, depending on the condition that you put in. So for example, if we want to say, probably we want to alert the user like 4 or 5 times. So you can say like, number of alerts, and alert this person like 4 times. And so yeah, sometimes you might see that I'm ignoring to put this type, but I'm just doing it because it's the basics, and I think it's something which you have to kind of, yeah, like I just want the concept to sink in. But yeah, with time, people usually don't. Yeah, you can just do this and it'll still work. Just like sink in. I'm just going to keep on writing the types. Yeah, because Kotlin has actually, if we remove this, I think, yeah, that's maybe it's worth noting. If you're looking to dive a bit deeper into Kotlin, there's something called type inference. So it kind of already knows the moment I write 4, the compiler will know that this is an integer. Once I do this, it will know it's a string. Once I do this, it will know it's a double. So that's what it means by type inference. Yeah, if you're into compiler stuff and all that, you can look into it. So back to this number of alerts, and I want to send a couple of alerts. So for alert in number of alerts, and I just print in alert. So it's going to print this for depending on the number of alerts there is. So for each alert in number of alerts, it's going to print. So it's going to print like the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, then the code stops. So if you actually look, must have, wait, I think I might have missed something. wait, this is more of a Java. For loop must have an iterator method. Ah, yeah, this is supposed to be, okay, my bad. So, okay, this now introduces something. Actually, I'm supposed to do this. So you need to print it from 0 to number of. So what I've done with these two dots is created a range. So Kotlin, you have these things called ranges. And if you want to create a range of, so this is from 0 to 4. So it's going to print it like, I think 4 times. Or 5 times. Oh, okay, this is included. Yeah, so Kotlin, you have these things called ranges. Yeah, I wasn't actually planning on covering it, but now that it's actually showed itself, we can as well just go into it. So we have these things called range. If you want to create a range of things, probably 0 to whatever, or A to Z. Yeah, so you can have like, this is also like a very valid range, or 0 to 10. It's going to print it from, yeah, exactly, from like 0 to, this will be part of, so it's going to print it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you want the last one to not, if you want it to not include the last one, I think you have to use until. And let's see, number of alerts. Let's see, this should now be 4 times. This was 5 times. With the 2 dots, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Let's see with until if it will be 4. Yeah. So with until, it's going to stop just before it actually hits the maximum or the cap. So yeah, there usually is something called like an off by 1 error, and yeah, this is usually like a place where a couple of bugs might come in. So something to look out for when working with loops. But yeah, other than for loops, we have things called, we have like something called repeat. We want to repeat something, maybe println I am repeating this a lot, and put a number of alerts. Yeah, so this is going to be like 4 times. And another thing which you can use to do like all this kind of looping stuff, you can have a while loop. So while loop, you can have like while 4 is more than 2. Okay, this is a loop that will never stop, so I won't write it. But so long as whatever condition you've passed here is always true, I mean 4 will always be more than 2. So whatever code is here will always be executed. So yeah, if you actually run this, I think it will never stop. Yeah, so whatever you actually do with a while loop, you have to also be very cautious, because yeah, you might end up using a lot of resources. It will always execute this code as long as whatever condition you've put here is true. 4 is less than. And yeah, I think I'll just wrap up the conditions with that. And anything else? Oh, okay, we have like 5-6 minutes. Oh, okay. Wow, so yeah, ranges. I think we've covered like loops, whens, ranges, and comments. Yeah, probably I can touch on a bit of comments. Oops, I keep on opening the wrong tab. Yeah, so comments are something which I think, yeah, you can already see an example here. We have different types of comments in Kotlin. Comments kind of help. So yeah, I think a couple of people have very different arguments for using comments, but comments are mostly used if you probably want to explain something that probably the code hasn't captured its context, or the code is not that readable, or it might confuse you the next time you look at it, or if someone else is, if you're working in a team, probably someone else may not understand what you're doing, or just for documentation purposes. So like there are very different reasons why you might use a comment. So the single line comments, you just put in 2 double slashes, and I just like write whatever comment you want. Then another type of comment you have in Kotlin, you just put in that /. This is more of a multi-line comment. This is a multi-line comment, same thing as you can see here. Yeah, this is for multiple lines, this is for a single line, and yeah, that's pretty much it with comments. And the last thing with Kotlin that I can mention in brief is we have something called classes. So classes are very wide. I think it's a very wide kind of topic in Kotlin. So this kind of helps you group together a representation of data which are kind of related. For example, we have, let's say for example, we had like a variable called width, and width is, let's say, an int 40, and we have height, which is an int is 20. So probably this, as you can see, like this width and height kind of represents something, and you want this something to be something, turn it into something quantifiable in the code base, I'd say, or group together this logic and have an object. And that's where the concept of classes come in. So probably I can have like a rectangle, and the way we did with functions to like add new what is it called, parameters, you can just do the same thing with height. And yeah, so now I can actually, other than have 2 variables, I can just have one here called rectangle, say rectangle width is like 20, height is like something, that was a square. Yeah. And yeah, there you have it. This is how we create classes, and I can use this class to do, let's say, rectangle, and yeah. So as you can see, I should be able to like see the width and height, but they are, if you actually want this width and height to be accessible when you do this, so we have this dot and you want to like be able to have access to this height and width, I'm going to have to come here and put in the val and put in the val. Once I do that, I should be able to have access to the width and access to height. So yeah, I've actually covered quite a bit on in such a short time. Yeah, probably it was a lot to take in if this is your first time doing Kotlin. If it's not, probably it's just a refresher for you. What I would recommend is to actually go and check out this Kotlin course. They kind of cover all these concepts in a much deeper sense. Also, the Kotlin documentation is very well done. Yeah, they kind of have like broken down everything and they did a UI revamp, I think some weeks ago, so it kind of looks cool. Even for beginners, I think it will be easier for you to like check out the docs now. And yeah, unless if someone has like a question which I can answer, and if something went over your head, if there's something Kotlin specific you are trying out and you want to know how to do something in Kotlin.
Okay, thank you for the session, David. So if anyone has a question requiring any clarification, you could post it on the chat. I think personally I have a question. Since I saw you are covering conditionals, and I didn't hear you mention any ternary operator. So I just wanted to ask, does Kotlin have a ternary conditional operator?
Yeah, we do. So that depends on ternary operator. Yeah, no, that kind of touched on nullability. Yeah, I'm wondering why. How come I think 1 hour is not enough to actually cover the whole Kotlin. Let me see. Let me remove all this. So probably you're asking about something to do with. So in Kotlin, you have this concept of nullability being part of the type system. And nullability means like, for example, we checked out that we have like weight is an int and we can have it like 40. But then there are cases where we do not know the weight. So we add like that question mark and it's null. And we want to do something if it's not null, or you want to do probably wants to do something different if it's null. So what you might actually see people do is actually come and try and do what? Let me look at something random. Yeah, probably if it's not null, probably you want to divide it with 2. Or if it's null, you want to, I don't know, do some other full functionality. So yeah, this is as close to ternary operations as it gets with Kotlin.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think we have a question from Brins Mbaka. The question goes, why are there types in class parameters?
Why are there types? Oh, Kotlin is a statically typed programming language. That's why we put types. If you're coming from JavaScript, I don't know if that's like the context you're coming from, but yeah, Kotlin is a statically typed language. That's why we put types on things. We can't do something like I don't know, like weight and height. Yeah, this won't work at all. Yeah, you have to explicitly write the type that you're expecting. That's what it means when they say a language is statically typed.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. And I think sticking on to the classes, I think we have a question. Someone's asking, clarification. Brins meant variables, you said, when don't have to give types. I can't understand. I think.
I think you mean means like when I remove, let's say this, have it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a concept called type inference. Like the Kotlin compiler knows like what type it kind of expects. Yeah, so you don't always have to provide that type. So long as you set the value, then the compiler will actually automatically know that, I don't know, probably like this is an int, it will know this is a double or a float or float or whatever it is. So yeah, the compiler will handle that type inference things. You can just look into type, yeah, you can just look into something called type inference. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They'd use partially fully the type of an expression at compile time. So Kotlin has this out of the box, the Kotlin compiler.
Okay, thank you for that. And maybe a personal question to you, David. When switching from different languages, like in JavaScript, we have like the new keyword while instantiating a class. Is it the same for Kotlin? Or?
No, so I think I'd just use this as an example. If you want to create a new instance of this rectangle class, for example, I just come and write rect and pass in whatever variables. So no, we do not need any new. So all that new stuff is not necessary in Kotlin. So yeah, that's one of the concise parts of aspects of writing Kotlin code.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? You can post it on the chat. Okay, if you have any question, you can post it. Seeking any clarification, anything matters Kotlin. Okay, I think you've handled most of the questions. Thank you for the session, David. And I think there's no other. Okay, thank you everyone for attending this session today. I think we've done basics of Kotlin, and hope to see you in the next series. And we appreciate you, David, for the session. Thank you.
Sure. See you next time.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.